Meeting to order at 7:00 p.m. Jennifer, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Baker?
Here.
Ms. Booten?
Here.
Ms. Christian?
Here.
Ms. Oliver? Mr. Patel?
Here.
Ms. Dr. Bishop?
Here.
And Ms. Unical?
Yes. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there anything anyone would like to have removed from the consent agenda and moved into new business? Seeing none, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Thanks, Dinesh. Is there a second? Second. You get to decide, Janet and Laura. Can we do a roll call vote?
Mr. Baser?
Aye.
Ms. Booten?
Yes.
Ms. Christian?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Dr. Bishop?
Yes.
Ms. Unical?
Yes. Excellent. And I see no members of the public tonight. We have staff. We'll look at the staff reports.
Okay, great. So this is a reminder that we get to spend lots of time together. You guys will be coming back here on May 3rd at 9 a.m. for our brainstorming session for the master plan. I wanted to just quickly outline kind of what that's going to look like. We will start with our annual library tour of the building, and then David Vinjamuri from Third Way Space will be here. He's going to have the report done a little bit before the May meeting, so he'll be coming and we'll be spending time with him. And then Tiffany and Dan will lead us in a brainstorming for the master plan, and then they'll be here throughout the entire time. So very much looking forward to that. And then I wanted to also remind any board member that is a member of the Illinois Library Association that ILA elections are happening right now, and anyone that's an individual member can vote. If anyone is interested in knowing more about any of the candidates, I am happy to share information about the candidates with any of you. And would be happy to email that out or share. And then I also wanted to invite everyone to our Staff Development Day anniversary celebration and then lunch on May 8th at 11:45. And I'd like Becky to just share a little bit more because we just finalized the schedule for Staff Development Day.
Yes. So good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to tell you about Staff Development Day, which is Friday, May 8th. I chair a committee, a working group of staff members from across the library who really bring great staff voice and perspective into shaping this day to be one that's very meaningful and full of impact, and we're going to learn together but also build community. So we're going to start the day with Kate doing a year in review presentation. We're going to move to a keynote presentation I'm looking forward to on the concept of yes and that comes from improv and how we can apply that concept to customer service. We're going to have a break and then move into some other EDI breakout sessions, one on unlocking your inner genius, knowing yourself to create impact, and EDI and library collections. We'll have the anniversary awards, as Kate mentioned, and a great lunch by Naf Naf Grill, which was voted on by staff as the #1 pick. So great Mediterranean cuisine. And then we're going to have some afternoon breakout sessions going into a nature walk, a sound bath, which I'm looking forward to, just to relax and tune out, creative journaling as well, and then an afternoon presentation by our very own staff member, Lucy Gray, who's talking about libraries, AI, and how it impacts our day-to-day work. And then we'll end the day with looking at the year ahead with Kate. So a really jam-packed agenda with lots of great opportunities for reflection, learning, and building community. So hope to see you there.
What are so it starts at 9 and goes till
5.
And then the anniversary stuff is at 11:45, and then lunch will be right after at 12:15. And next up, a legislative update. As I mentioned to all of you, House Bill 5236 had an amendment filed with it. This is the ebook, the fair pricing for ebooks bill, and it passed out of committee 9-0, which is huge. We now have 3 Republican co-sponsors on the bill and have almost 40 co-sponsors. So the next step is that it will be called for a vote on the floor. We hope that will be scheduled by tomorrow. And then I feel very optimistic that it will pass the House, and then it will go to the Senate, where we get to do this all over again. So I'll be asking you then for some more help in reaching out to our wonderful senators and to anyone else that you might know that lives in other areas.
I
Oh,
just
yeah,
refresh my
Janet,
memory.
yeah.
Who's sponsoring on the Senate side?
Meg Keppel, who's the chair of the Education Committee, which is where they expect it to land. So, yeah, thanks. I hope I pronounced her last name correctly. The other legislative update, so there's 3 legislative priorities for ILA. One was on open educational resources for academic libraries. They were asking for a $3 million funding line in the Secretary of State's budget. That has not moved out of the Rules Committee, so it likely will need to be resubmitted in the next cycle. But we also asked for an increase in the per capita grant fund. Since the last time the per capita grant award was increased, there's been an increase of over 20% in the cost of living. And so we are looking for, or inflation, I should say. Man, my words are not coming easily tonight. House Bill 4261 is asking for that 20% kind of to get us caught back up with the cost of inflation. This applies not only to our per capita grant, but it also applies to all of the system grants. So Rails, which funds all of our delivery, most of our continuing education, it helps fund some of the catalog costs, is would also get a bump with this. So it passed out of the House with 107 yes votes and 0 no votes, which is fantastic, and I think speaks to how much libraries are appreciated in this state, and will now be hopefully assigned to a committee in the Senate. And I will keep you updated on that as well. And I'm happy to answer any other questions from my report if anyone has any.
So as part of Kate's report, you may have noticed that there was an article included that was a follow-up to a conversation we had in February. That seems like a million years ago, but February. So this is not an action item, there's no proposal. This was the request of the board at that time to have more context. When we discussed the E-rate internet option and the commitment that it would require to filter on certain keywords, we didn't have a lot of context around precedent or how that decision would be made. And so Kate provided this resource for us, and we thought we would take a little bit of time tonight to discuss it. So I will open it up for thoughts, comments, reactions. Seeing, I'm just kidding. I was going to say seeing none, moving on. Go ahead.
Happy to begin. So Kate, thank you for including that article. I thought it was a good jumping off point for the conversation. I think that the article focused primarily around some of the tension that comes from the way that software, both in its inception and in its configuration, can potentially create additional problems beyond what it was trying to solve. I do still believe that internet filtering in an environment that is built around a goal of public trust is important, and that from both the basis of ensuring that everyone feels welcome in this environment, as well as from a cybersecurity standpoint, and from a protection standpoint for the potential for harmful behavior that can be amplified by the internet whether we're talking about a gambling addiction or searching about, going on to anorexia, pro-anorexia forums when someone suffers from that mental illness, that public institutions like libraries should have a conversation about what types of protections their digital landscape should have equal to the types of protections and curations that are built into their physical environment.
I'll weigh in. I feel quite strongly that, as Kate notes, a position that decisions about what people access should be made by our patrons and the public and not by us. Public trust also, I think, pertains to the public trusting that when they come in this library, the library isn't making decisions about what they can and can't see. And, I think when you start down the road of saying people shouldn't see this or they shouldn't see that, where does that stop? We can all agree on some things, and I think Adam mentioned some, that we understand clearly can create problems on the internet. We all know many cases on other boards, school boards, other library boards, where the ideas about what might be harmful could be just about anything. So who makes those decisions? And I think it is a perilous road to go down to use our own opinions about what we think people should or shouldn't have a right to look at. And I also think that we have stood very firmly on First Amendment rights and access to information. We can hardly do that if we ourselves are prohibiting access to types of information.
I think it's a slippery slope. I think it's a tough one. And I personally am not an arbiter of right or wrong or whose opinion is valuable and whose is not, or I agree with Janet.
I have a question about the desktop computers and youth services. Could you go over I know a few of them are only can only use for a single application, right? Like they're like a certain reading
Yeah,
a
like
book to
Pebble
application
books.
or something like that. So could you go over that, just like how many computers are in there and like which ones are just limited to that, which ones have just like regular internet access? Maybe not like which ones, but just I'm trying to get like a sense of
I'm
what's
trying to
going on in
remember
these
exactly
services.
how
This
many.
might not be a completely
That's fine,
accurate
it's not
number,
perfect.
but
Yeah.
there's 6 computers in the teen loft that are
Sounds about right.
open for
Everything.
students to do anything, or kids to do anything. We do limit access to folks who are under 18 in that area, unless they're with a child or teen. And then in the youth area, there are tables that have 4 workstations. 2 of those are open for anything. One has Bookflix, and one has, I think, Lottie for kids. And then there is one that is an OPAC, our online catalog, and it's only used for that. So again, I might be missing something, but.
So there's a few that are open and then like a few that are application specific.
Yes.
How are they, like if someone comes in and sits down at the computer, how do they know which is which are open to anything, or do they have to ask the librarian to find like?
They're
which-
labeled
Okay.
for what the application is, so if they read the sign, then they know. And then for the The ones that are open for anything, you have to log in with a library card number. The other ones, you can go right into the application.
So you do have to have a library card to be able to use to access the internet.
Or a guest pass.
Or a guest pass, okay.
A couple questions, I think. I missed the February board meeting where this came up and when it was, but I did watch the video, when it was brought about to the group. It was a little bit more about the financial aspect of it, meaning you could get free internet or maybe it was subsidized internet through that
Subsidized,
program. And then the conversation did turn a little more to the filtering and how it was a little bit of a headache, obviously for the staff as well, for the different types of activity and work that they do. So it didn't sound like the financial part was a big deal to pay more and to have the internet that we currently do without these filters. But it does sort of raise the question, would it be a problem to like have redundant, like maybe use that internet for some computers or, and then let the staff have a separate one, or would that just?
We legally
defeat-
could not do
Okay.
that. So if you apply for E-rate funding and receive it, you
Use
have
it.
to comply with SIPA, and it requires that every computer in the library has to have filtering on it. So
Staff and.
staff and patrons, and the laptops that we loan out. But like if you brought your computer in, that's not the library's computer, so it would not have to, you could connect to the internet and it would not be filtered. Other questions?
Just a quick question, is there any way to identify a user?
Yes, mostly. So when someone logs in, we know when they're logged in, if they logged in with their library card and not a guest pass, who that person is, because it checks it against the database to make sure that it's like a real library card number. As soon as they go off, though, that record goes away. If they're using a guest pass, as we do have some regulars who do, that it means that we would not have any idea who it is.
Just wondering if certain, I don't know, scans of the user and the topic or whatever it was stand out, is worth following up with that. If there's an area that seems to be of concern. I don't know if it's,
I think it gets to the question
Abusing
of
people's
who
rights, yeah.
determines
Yeah.
what concern means. And, I mean, I think like all of the things that Adam outlined very much would be concerning. We've had patrons in the past who have been upset because someone was watching a movie with a lot of action and violence on it, and they thought that it was too graphic. I've had people at previous libraries be upset when someone was, shopping the Victoria's Secret catalog online, and everyone's own.
I think I was thinking about suicide. If there's somebody who repeatedly is,
So we don't know what
Yeah.
people are looking at.
Right.
Unless we
That's-
were standing right behind them or they're asking us for help. I will say that if we were to see something concerning, our staff are very empathetic, and we would
yeah, I just was thinking if
check
there's
in
a
with them.
way.
We've done the mental health first aid training. So like we know that, we would go up and say, are you thinking of harming yourself? And asking them that directly, trying to use the training that we've received to address it in that moment.
But we're not monitoring what people are accessing on the computers. And so the only way we would know that is if we happen to see it on a screen or somebody else happened to see it and reported it to us. So there's nothing that pings for us from a software side that would say, like my kids' schools, if something was being searched, it gets pinged, administration contacts parents right away. There's nothing, that kind of monitoring is not happening at the public
I was
library.
going to mention that that is what happens at school districts. It is
Okay.
monitored, and if there's something concerning, we do get a ping. Yeah.
I feel like that must be very helpful in schools.
It is, but it's a different setting and a different,
Yeah.
I would say that regarding the access and the filtering, the required filtering, I think without knowing what's going to be put on that filtering list, I wouldn't be comfortable with the computers in the library having it, especially since it's going to be all of them, including the staff's, because we have no idea how restrictive that filtering would be. Having said that, I am in favor of some sort of, and this isn't really necessarily what we're talking about right now, but some sort of limits or filtering for the computers in the children's area and teen area, or at least in specifically the children's area, just because I think there's a safety concern there that, and ideally, parents are watching their kids when they're on the computers, but most of the kids in the teen area don't have someone watching over them. And I don't know what the public's, not that they couldn't figure it out on their own, but I don't know what their sort of expectation is about that, whether or not, I think they would be surprised that there weren't filters on them, but.
who decides what gets filtered?
I would imagine that would be a similar process to the decisions that are made about what books are put into the library. It's a filtering process as well.
I think it is a little bit different in that there are hundreds of millions of web pages, and we review and purchase like 3,000 items a month. So figure maybe review 10,000 items. We also seek to present a balanced collection so that we do have opposing viewpoints on it, and I think it would be challenging to know how to review those and to be able to find those opposing viewpoints to make sure that we are bringing a balanced collection, if you will, on the internet to the community. And there's constantly new sites being added. How would we just functionally do that?
Do other libraries do put some sort of filtering though?
They use the filtering software.
Okay, so we could use a filtering software specifically for computers in children and/or teen areas.
It would be the same as any of the other filtering software that we
Okay.
talked about in February.
Okay.
So it would still be, we wouldn't necessarily know what they were, like we
Right.
would choose categories, but we wouldn't necessarily know
Right.
what
But
all is
it wouldn't be
included.
across the board. It would just be specifically for, it could be specifically for certain areas. It wouldn't be every computer in the library.
That is true. We could choose to just filter the youth services computers, which has no bearing on the E-rate. Like we would then
Right.
still not
Yeah.
apply for that because that requires us to be with all of them. It does still have the same limitations though, in that it could restrict access to, gender confirmation surgery because someone has decided that that is pornographic, or, there's
Right.
there's a lot, and because the filtering companies won't share how they determine it, that worries me.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is we could get a filtering software that
Yep.
we say, oh, we want to make sure there's no explicit sexual content, and that's what we want. And that filtering software would say, well, that's what we do. But somebody over there is deciding what is sexually explicit, which, depending on the person making that decision, could be, stuff about LGBTQ stuff or gender affirming care or anything like that. And we have no say over that. And they made those decisions.
Well, and it would likely be a
Yeah.
bot
Yeah.
that has been trained
Yeah.
to
Right.
look for
Yeah.
certain.
And I certainly know in the district, we often do run into problems where something perfectly innocent is being banned that a student really needs to learn something because of just the way a word sounds. And in a school setting, you have a teacher right there to say, "Ah, shoot, okay, calling up the tech person and making sure. In a library, we would barely even know that was going on, really.
Right. Chances are people wouldn't tell us.
Yeah.
I appreciate the point that you're making, Jenna, I really do. The point that I'm trying to make is that there is somebody that is making decisions about content that is in the library, and it's the librarians that we entrust with curating materials to make sure that things like, say, is the Anarchist Cookbook in our?
Yes.
It is?
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
did
And I
not
think
know
that's
that.
the slippery slope. Like, for everything that one of us would want filtered, someone else in the room would want access to. And I think about conversations I've had with my nephews and my niece and like other kids about, well, I'm not offended by this, but I'm not allowed to have it in my school, and vice versa. For me, the actual conversation should be about digital literacy. How do we help parents help their kids navigate the internet? How do we help kids navigate the internet on their own without implementing, to Jana's point, a bot-implemented filter that may or may not be doing what's helpful? This is such a dumb example, but I also think about like the microwave Anito thing that kids are doing that's super dangerous. You microwave your squishy and it explodes and you end up with like second-degree burns. We would never filter on microwaving Anito, right? Like, who would think that you need to tell kids to not microwave a squishy? And then is someone going to come back to the Northbrook Library and say, well, you didn't filter on that, but you filtered on this other thing that was dangerous, like eating a Tide Pod? Because we know from 2016 you shouldn't eat Tide Pods. What is life?
I think some of us knew before 2016.
I also worked on a college campus with laundromats at the time, and I'll tell you, not enough people did.
Fair.
Anyway, so kind of silly examples, but like, we don't know what we don't know, and even the idea that we're filtering as a form of protecting people is fake in some ways. It's a false sense of safety. And so, like I said, I come back to the idea of, are we doing enough around digital literacy?
That would be my question, yeah. Could we? I mean, I don't know if we've
Yeah.
ever done programming either for parents or for kids. We, of course, do it in the schools. We do it
Yes,
all the time.
absolutely.
But,
And we've certainly have done it. I think one of the challenges is, it's kind of like the kid that doesn't like their vegetables.
Sure.
Like, you gotta hide the vegetables in, the French fries. And how do we get people, because if you're like, come to a program on digital literacy.
nobody's gonna.
I think we do it at the service desks.
Yes.
It's not something we're offering programming on, but it is something that is core to training the staff that are working at the service desk.
Parents might come though,
Yeah,
if you did something.
that's true.
Yeah.
We've done that also in the schools, and I guess the one thing we do have going for us in the schools is that we sort of have a captive audience, the kids
Right, they can't leave.
leave. But we have had a pretty good turnout when we've done nights for this for parents, and, I mean, I'm not really trying to suggest programming, I just,
Yeah, no, I think that, no, but I do think, to your point and to Stacy's point, the digital literacy piece is what is in line with our mission, is where we should be focusing. I think we've done a really good job on focusing on digital literacy for seniors. And, we do a lot of programming around that, right? Because we know a lot of seniors get scammed and, and so we do a fair amount in just about every technology program. But I think because we don't do as many direct technology programs for kids, because we want them to be interacting with non-screen time, and that maybe that's an opportunity that we can look into more, because I do think that one of the core goals of a library is to connect people with accurate information and teach them how to look for and assess
I do,
information.
I will say, I stand by everything I said, but I also think it is of paramount importance to educate younger people in particular about what they are seeing online and how they can assess what they're seeing online.
Oh.
And whether,
My nephew watches the most atrocious stuff on YouTube, and I'm like, that is AI and that is not true.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, it's absolutely true. I said, well, let's sit down and let me show you. And I mean, that.
just, yeah, that is so important.
I mean, I think the kids sort of stumbling onto something is one thing. I think the other is kids who are looking for content that is sexually explicit or violent content and things like that. That I think also that's concerning to me as well. Like, if you're seeking it out, then all the programming in the world isn't going to.
So if you're seeking it out, you have bigger problems than probably we can solve here.
We're not trying to solve them. I'm not saying we're trying to solve them, but I don't know.
I will also say that, and Kelly can weigh in too. I can think of, in my 25 plus years working in public libraries, I can think of one example of a teen looking specifically for sexually explicit content. It's usually a different audience that is coming in that isn't going to be allowed in the youth services area on the computers. So, but I don't know if Kelly, if you've had the same.
I've never experienced it.
Okay. And that was back when I was like a baby librarian back in like
But we didn't,
2002.
yeah, but the internet was
completely
different then,
different,
yeah,
yeah.
that was a different.
Absolutely. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is even now, we're not seeing kids doing that.
Or you,
Good.
the key word is you're not seeing them doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure behind, but I really love the idea of parent-child workshop, of parents sitting with their child and having these conversations about, I mean, with my own grandchildren, my kids were shocked that these lovely, beautiful little boys had found these, it was like, whoa, not my children. And it required them educating themselves on how to talk to them about how to use this powerful machine. I think the more that we can do and encourage that conversation between parents and children, I think that's a critical place to start.
I think that also serves the community well, because as we think about the number of places that youth experience access to the internet, the library is a small part of it, especially when we think about a library-owned computer. And yes, this is a community that is affluent and has a lot of means, but we know that they're coming in with their own screens, they're coming in with their phones, their iPads, they have Chromebooks through school. And so the 6 or so computers in youth services that are unfiltered honestly aren't what keep me up at night, because that's I mean, yes, it's a risk, but so is the Chromebook they take back and forth to school every day, or the phone that they have, or the friend's phone that they have access to look at. So I like that idea of a joint parent-student thing, and maybe it's a partner, not our job to suggest programming, but maybe it's in partnership with school districts.
And I wonder, like, if in connection, I don't want to like jump ahead too much to the master plan or to like what we saw at the Skokie Library, but I did notice in the Skokie Library, they don't have desktop computers in the youth. They obviously have a separate teen area and a separate youth services area, and they didn't have any computers, like desktop computers in that area. And I thought that was really interesting. And so I wonder, you know, to me, I definitely, if we're going to say, I don't think we should filter like the internet access, but I do my more concern is that someone is just like there, someone walks by and like sees someone, they didn't seek it out, but they don't want it there. And I just think I know there was that issue with the iPads. I don't know exactly what happened in these services area. We ended up like getting rid of them because it was too distracting. And I wonder, like, maybe we could just be more thoughtful about what like screens we're putting into youth services when we go forward. And
I like that idea. The idea that they're at least a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And not for filtering reasons, but because there's such a draw that maybe, I don't
So you
know.
guys clearly got a sneak peek at the youth services feedback for the master plan that I just read yesterday, because that is definitely the route that they're thinking and, you know, brainstorming on of how can we make sure from a digital equity perspective that people have access, but how can we also make sure that we are creating an environment that we want to be creating here? And so I think it's finding that middle ground where it is like, maybe we don't have a separate youth computer area. Maybe we have just a computer area and, you know, some kind of in between youth and adult. And I'm just like, I don't actually know at this point what is going to make the most sense. But I do think that having these conversations and thinking about it is important and is something that I'm really glad that we're doing.
Just a couple more points I'd like to voice. Is there anything stopping someone currently from using public library computers to transact a crime?
No.
Is there anything stopping folks from using the library's computers to download malicious software?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we have deep freeze installed on every computer, and so I'm not an IT person, so I'm not going to be able to describe it as well as I should. But basically, yeah, they can try, but it's not going to allow them. It doesn't allow them to download anything. If they were somehow to work around that, when they log off, deep freeze runs through and wipes it completely clean.
So they cannot download anything, whether they're aware of it or not, that would impact the overall network and security of the
Correct.
building?
Correct.
Okay.
We've, working with OSG, taken many active steps to ensure that our network is protected, both the public side and the staff side.
And I appreciate and yes, and the idea of digital literacy training. But, you know, we've had this conversation around the importance of intellectual freedom, and we've talked about other libraries that do have filtering software. Has there been an impact on the intellectual freedom at those libraries from that internet filtering software? Is our library provide more intellectual freedom than a library without filtering software on our internet than a library that does have internet filtering software on their internet?
I think it's one of those invisible barriers that you can't quantify. I would say yes, because if you go and you can't get something, like if I walk into Walgreens because I need Q-tips, and they don't have any there, I'm not going to say, why don't you have Q-tips? I'm going to just turn around and go to Jewel, and they'll never know that that's what I was looking for and that I didn't get what I found. And I think the same is true here. People aren't going to come and ask and be like, why? I'm looking for this, especially if it's something that is a sensitive topic. They're not going to say anything. Now, do I know that that's happening? No. Do I know that it's not happening? Also no. And so I would say that we are upholding the strictest interpretation of intellectual freedom, which I think is really important. And I also can't tell you quantifiably how it's impacting in libraries with filtering.
Okay, thank you.
I wish I could, because I like numbers. But
I think with anytime you start to regulate something, you have to look at the risk and reward. And I would say that there is I would lean, like, in a specific area, I would lean towards filtering. I think because it is going to be very few people who are accessing those computers in a kid's area, and I don't know why they would need access to everything if it is specifically in a kid's area.
And what are we defining as a kid?
I don't know, maybe you've got separate filtering for the teens than you do for the youth. I'm not sure how we exactly break that down. I think the teens, they're used to having full access probably on their devices, I would think.
we don't, however, have a way at this moment within our library system to be able to differentiate with the software we use for logging onto the computers that I'm aware of, that you can only log into these youth ones and not the teen ones. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if you have a library card, you have a library card.
And I think that gets back to if we pay for a service to filter, the filter and the bot are making the decision. If we
Right.
say kids filter, teen filter, they're going to decide what that threshold
Yeah.
is and not us.
And I think that we can't be expected to do that, obviously, but, so I think the potential for maybe more limited information is, if they can't get what they're finding, they can talk to a librarian and they can use a different computer that sort of thing. But I don't see,
Oh, I was thinking more,
Oh.
the kids could just go to the teen area.
Okay.
How are we gonna know that they're not, like, some 12-year-olds look like they're 18?
Right,
Some
and some
15-year-olds,
21-year-olds
yeah.
look like they're 18 and could be
And
using
you
those
do start heading down a
computers.
slippery slope,
Yeah.
so.
Just
Do we have restrictions on what can be built within the makerspace? Can somebody build a ghost gun using?
We do not allow any weapons.
Okay. So we are doing some filtering of digital technology and its use in the library.
Yes, we have that written into the policy. That's
That would also be compliant with state law. That's not just a library policy, like, it's illegal in the state of Illinois to have a ghost gun.
Right. But could somebody build a 3D knife?
I mean, it's a weapon. I can't picture any of our staff.
I'm bringing this up because I'm trying to understand
Yeah,
where the
but-
consistency and inconsistencies are between decisions we make about the content
One
that is on the
area.
bookshelf versus the content that's on the computer.
Yeah.
The content, the restrictions that are on a computer versus the restrictions that are on a manufacturing tool that has a computer at its core. And, along the argument of intellectual freedom, I think it's important that we look at all of this holistically and be able to understand where we are sending one type of message through choices that we make about the physical content that's in the library and one choice that we're making about the digital content that's accessible in the library.
Absolutely. And Kelly and I have actually been talking with our maker services manager and assistant manager because we want to make sure that staff aren't policing what people are asking for, that they're not deciding, oh, I don't think that that's okay, or I don't like that we're making sure that we are not being the arbiters of copyright, because we are not copyright experts, and that we are educating and informing people like, hey, just so you know, there's this thing called intellectual property, and you might not want to steal it from others. Obviously, I'm speaking a little facetiously. We don't say it that way, but we do take that very seriously. When it comes to weapons, I'm just trying to think of anything. I'm like looking at Kelly to think like,
I mean, the policy says weapons or look-alike weapons, and that's based off of legislation that came out when 3D printing goes guns.
I mean,
Not
could
easy.
someone print things completely
Drug paraphernalia?
separately and put it together? Sure. That we don't realize that that's what it is? Sure. I think anything is possible. But if it looks like a gun and looks like a knife, we would consider that. And I would say that we focus on keeping things as open as possible. And this is challenging for staff. I mean, like the same things that you're wrestling with, like, well, but they shouldn't be doing that. And it's like, we can inform and try to educate people, but we shouldn't be the ones deciding what they can or can't create on a laser cutter.
But we've already sort of made that decision with some material, so like if like
Because
with
state law
DVDs,
requires.
like with DVDs, we don't have pornographic materials that people can check out.
Right, but
you
but
can
some
use your-
people might argue that some of the items we have, they would deem pornographic,
Right, so
that are
but-
very explicit.
Right, so, but we don't have certain DVDs, but we have access to material that would be just as explicit on the internet, so we're already
But if
restricting what they
someone
can.
requested something, we would do our best to find it in another library for them.
Right, chances are we're not gonna find
Sure.
that material in another library.
Agreed.
But you can find it on the internet, so if the expectation is if they want the material, they have to go ask for it. Why is having to, if you want certain sites, why is that more onerous to say, well, now you have to go ask for those. And I realize that the filter is sort of the issue, but,
You know, I think it's, the fact is, if they don't find it here, they're gonna turn around, go home, go to somebody else's house. If they're motivated to know about or find that topic, they're going to. It doesn't make any difference if we've decided that it's not appropriate or whatever. I think it comes down to the whole philosophy of freedom of information. You know, the Constitution, what do we stand for? And I don't think, I think we can nitpick into specific circumstances or what ifs, but for me, it's like no banning books. I just feel that that's just who we are. And I think if it's a philosophy, I think it's it's what we stand for. And I don't think that anything we're gonna do is gonna prevent somebody who has other motives or there's every way that they can get the information. You know, they're not gonna, you don't get it here, bye. I don't feel I would be stopping anybody from anything if they're up to no good. But I think it's a core of who are we and what do we stand by, not if it's a filter or not.
I'm not saying that again, that's sort of putting a judgment if they're up to no good. I'm saying that that there is certain sort of information, there are certain videos, there are certain images on the internet that I don't think should be accessible to all.
That's your judgment. So that's your
So
judgment.
That is my
that's a
judgment,
value
right.
you get to hold
And
it
should
only with
your
family.
judgment be what's the decision maker around here? So, because another person could say, there are certain things that I don't think are appropriate for people to see on the internet, and that includes gay people.
Yeah,
So who gets to make those choices?
But we're already making choices.
Yeah.
We're making choices, the library is a space that has been curated by individuals. We appreciate their curation, we're all here because we love the library and love librarians and the work that they do, but they are natural filters for the information that people can interact with in the library. They're saying, I believe this book should be in our collection, and I believe that this book should not be in our collection. And we all support that. The information on the internet is also content that is being consumed within the public library space. And we're saying we want the physical objects that are in the library to go through this curation process, and we want the digital information that's coming into the library to not go through any filtering or curation process.
I think the difference is the library is purchasing the items that are physical copies. We're using taxpayer money to buy, in most cases, physical or digital copies. The internet has to be controlled by the FCC, for better or worse, and we're at the whims of the federal government. Is it the FCC? FCC, that was right.
Yeah.
I swear I went to
FCC.
college once.
I think the other piece is we did just, when we did our strategic plan, we redesigned our mission statement, which reads, we build community, champion intellectual freedom, and provide open access to the world of knowledge.
We do, but if there was a book that had, so even if it was just sort of had like mature content in it, like no judgment at all, you're not gonna put that book in youth services. So we're already sort of making a distinction between where certain books are in the library and sort of.
That is true from a merchandising perspective, but we would also not stop if a child wanted to check it out.
Right, you wouldn't. And so if a child did want to go use the computer up in the third floor in a different area, they are allowed to use those computers, right? Yeah. So it's the same, why is it?
With an adult.
Okay.
Does the ILA have any research done on this? Do they have compilation of what's working, why people have chosen certain filters Why not? Is there any
So
data?
the American Library Association has taken a strong anti-filtering stance from the start. So I have not ever seen any. I can do a deeper dive on that for sure. They have said like no, basically. There has been work done to see on the efficacy of different filters. And as early as 2020, or as recently as 2024, they were finding that it was still blocking things that it shouldn't be. And so short answer, not really.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tricky.
It is tricky. And it is coming from a place of, we want children and their families to feel welcomed and safe in the library. I think that's the hard thing, is that this is coming from a place of wanting to do no harm, right? I think it's when you start digging into the details that it becomes very challenging, and it's really hard. We had a couple years ago a gentleman that was looking at some sexually explicit content, and someone in the adult department, someone walked behind him, was upset, came up and was like, I don't like that. And we said we would be happy to find you a different seat. We would be happy to ask him, to move to a different area. And what they wanted was for him to be kicked out. But that wasn't something that we could do. And I thought, this guy's creepy. And he's kind of like, ugh. And I wish he wasn't here. I wish he wasn't looking at this stuff. And I have to stand up for his right to look at stuff that I personally find kind of gross, like what he was looking at. And I did, because it is my judgment of what, like, I personally, ugh. But to others, it might have been like not a big deal. And that's where we can't know. And how do we, we do not act in loco parentis. We, are open to anyone and everyone. How do we decide where to put those boundaries?
Do you need a decision on anything?
This is not a decision. This was just meant to be a discussion. I mean, it has been a discussion. So, discussed.
A good one, and thank you for allowing the forum.
These are not easy things.
They are not.
Moving on to board member reports, I believe the nominating committee met ahead of tonight's meeting, and Nimesh will have an update for us. Did Nimesh know he was going to give us an update? Nimesh does not look like he knew I have an annotated agenda that says you're going to give us an update.
We met, and we will coordinate the activities and update Kate in the interim before the next board meeting, and we will process the nominating committee at the next board meeting.
Great job. 10 out of 10 update. No notes. Really, if I had an Olympic 10 sign. Okay. Skokie Library Tour comments. We'll talk about this more next month, but wanted to see if there were any initial reactions from last night's tour. No comments about our special guest, please.
I appreciated the time the staff took to show us around. It was, I felt it was a very, I realize it was a similar architectural plan, at least originally, or similar, but it seemed like a very different space than ours. Not better, or worse. Well, I do have a soft spot for ours, but it was interesting to see the choices they've made with their youth services, some furniture. I thought that their signage system was very clean and easy to sort of navigate. And I did like a lot of the, the forward-facing
Yeah,
books.
the
That was
face out.
pretty neat, yeah.
I really appreciated it as well. It sort of, I think it just got me thinking about sort of the overall plan of ours, as well as sort of more detailed aspects of it, and just sort of like where things go and what the priorities are and how our mission should be, reflected in the planning.
it's huge.
Yes.
And I felt the vastness of it. And as a parent, when I went with my children to the library, and we went to the Skokie Library in the beginning, I wanted to be able to be part of the experience with my children, but I also wanted to be a reader. And I think part of it is as a role model for my children to come to the library and to embrace it. But the other part was that they could see that what I was doing, they could do, but I was always able to see them. I felt that there was isolated pieces, and it was kind of like everything is kind of segregated rather than, and I know that you don't necessarily want to have quiet reading time with the children, but there has to be some way in which it can be embraced so that.
Like more intergenerational?
One of the phrases that really I've been sitting with since our visit was and I'm sorry, I don't remember the director's name.
Oh, Richard.
Richard, but when he said we wanted to go with the architecture of the building itself and lean into the fact that it was a mid-century modern building. And you could see the choices that they made to not fight against the building, but to flow in the same direction as the building. And I think it made it a much more unified user experience of being in the space.
That's a great point.
I really liked when you said that too.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, and you could tell, you could
Yeah.
absolutely tell,
Yeah.
right? That came out loud and clear.
They probably, like, they have low ceilings, but they did a nice job with their ceilings. They mentioned that they took the sight lines into consideration to make it feel more open, so, yeah, to your point, Adam, they did a nice job of working within the context. I kind of, one thing I also liked was they had a lot of lounges, and the teen lounge was sort of its own separate space.
should be.
And yeah. And so there was a lot of commentary around that about how it's also secluded so that from a noise standpoint, it wouldn't filter over into.
Secluded but not tucked away.
Right, with the
Right,
glass
which I thought
windows.
was really nice. It's not like we're ashamed to hide them. It was like, yeah, you deserve your own space,
Yeah.
but we also, you're still part of us.
Yeah.
So a lot of ideas going into our strategic plan, obviously looking at something like that. I'm curious, I forget the name of the company that you're using from a consulting standpoint that will be.
The architects,
Yeah.
product, or third way
Third way
space for the space audit.
They've done libraries before, so they
He
have.
only does
Right,
libraries.
okay.
He
So
came
that's
from a
good.
retail background and switched into libraries.
Yeah.
So-
they'll have captured some of the things that we've talked about or seen with
Oh, yeah.
multiple libraries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't help sort of be comparing the teen space at the Skokie Library with the teen space at Schaumburg. And I really liked the placement of the Skokie one, but there was an energy to the Schaumburg one that I felt was, lacking in the Skokie one. Just sort of, it seemed a little too small at Schaumburg and maybe too big, sort of like to be Goldilocks there, maybe too big at Skokie, and maybe it was just the number of people there, but.
So then Northbrook, we're gonna get it just right, and then they'll be able to look at
Exactly.
it. I love it.
But, yeah, and I did find it a little bit disorienting, and I had been in the building before, so it wasn't my first time in Skokie, but I think just the size of the space itself is, and I do appreciate the fact that they really did sort of respect the architecture of the building, but I didn't feel like it wasn't, you didn't really, the entrances were, and I think it is hard, it's like with our building, when you've got multiple
Yeah.
entrances to sort of
And
figure out.
theirs are, like,
Yeah.
not Ours, it's challenging because of the wind tunnel that can be
Yeah.
created. Theirs is challenging because of the
There's no
sight lines
sightline.
and how.
Yeah.
So, both, yeah.
I thought it was wonderful. Obviously, a lot of ideas were generated that we'll talk about at that meeting, but it was really nice to talk to hear from the director and the assistant director on like the decisions that they made or whys behind things, which I thought was helpful.
I will say I have a fondness for here are sort of tucked away areas with two kind of chairs and a table,
Right.
which I didn't really see there. They had couches and things, which is also nice. But one thing I've always treasured about this library is, if you're lucky, you take your book and you can sit in one
Oh,
chair.
and like kind of like the little hidden.
Yes.
Like there's that spot on the third
Yeah.
floor by Mystery that you can look out on the
I just
river.
kind of value that, yeah.
And now that's out in the world.
No.
Many people that watch our meeting. Now they know. Any other board member reports?
I just wanted to say that I had the good fortune to drop in on Family Chess last weekend, I think it was, yeah. And I didn't know it was a beautiful day, so I didn't know if anyone was going to be there, but they were. And it was several children and their parents all playing chess just in the room, which I thought was really nice. Delia was holding down the fort, you know, just there. And I thought it was a really nice opportunity. You don't have to sign up, just drop in, play chess. So.
Very nice.
It's been very popular. Chess is definitely on the upswing again.
Yeah. I'd been in the teen one or the younger one, but this one I thought, I was curious to see how many parents and kids came together to play chess, and they did.
I came to the local offer fair, and I expected just to kind of pop by and do a quick lap, but I ended up being there for 2 hours. But it was, people are so proud of their work and wanting to share, and it's really cool to see how many people in our community just want to do that and have, totally different topics and things and just interesting people, and it was a really nice event. It was really well done.
I will pass those compliments on to Lab and Teen Services.
I stopped by the Friends of the Library book sale on preview night, and it was hopping. I did not expect preview night to be as busy as it was. There were like people waiting for doorbuster deals. I got here at like 6:35, and there were already people everywhere. And I was like, oh, okay. It was great. Friends of the Library always does a great job, and general reminder to renew your membership if it's time. It's time for me. Yeah. Does everybody renew on the same cycle?
No,
Okay.
it's the month that you
Oh,
renewed the previous year.
Got mine in the mail.
I'm August.
Good to know.
In case
I'll
anyone's
rem-
wondering,
we'll
check
re-
with me in August.
We'll remind you.
Okay.
I stopped by the library, I think it was just this past Monday, and I was impressed. We invited the Winnetka Historical Society over here to do a summary on the North Shore movies that have been filmed all across. And it was well attended, so I thought that was really nice. And afterwards, there was a book signing by a former owner of the Home Alone house, and I was impressed by how many patrons stayed to talk with him and stuff like that. So again, another nice sort of community building opportunity, and the way you partnered with Winnetka Historical Society, and I know that they're tied in with the Northbrook as well, was a nice celebration. So nice job to everyone who put that on.
I will pass along the compliments.
Moving into unfinished business. We have a special guest tonight. Linda is here to give us an update on the website project.
You want me to move or sit here?
Yeah, why don't you come up to the
Go
table,
into the
or if you
light.
want to stand, whatever is easier.
All right, well, thanks for inviting me to talk about the website project and hear how it's going. I'm going to give you a little background on the project and talk a little bit about how the new website will work and how it works with another product that we're working on implementing right now. And I'm going to try to keep it interesting, and then we'll take questions at the end, and also quick. So based on patron feedback and our survey responses, we know that people that use our website don't really distinguish between the catalog search and the website itself, meaning the pages that you would find outside of the catalog. And we know this because based on patron feedback, people complain about, I wasn't able to find I don't like your website because I couldn't find the material that I wanted. And so one of the products that we're implementing right now is called BiblioCore. I'll either call it BiblioCore or Core, but it's the same thing. And that is what's called the discovery layer that sits on top of our current catalog. So our catalog isn't changing, but the way people are going to see it and interact with it is going to be a much more friendly experience, more graphical. It's going to feel more like when you search for something on Google or Amazon. And that component, BiblioCore, is getting implemented and configured right now. I'm actually doing training on it and kind of involved in that process, although not formally part of the BiblioCore implementation team. And because BiblioWeb sits on top of BiblioCore, BiblioCore has to get installed first and get up and running. So they're working hard on that and making sure that staff understands how it works, and there's a lot to it. And so, but just because they're doing that doesn't mean that we're not working on the back end with the Biblio website. It's just important that you realize there's two parts to the website and they have to kind of mesh together. So the second component, which I'm involved in with the website team, is BiblioWeb, which again sits on top of BiblioCore, and it's the web builder tool. So you can't have BiblioWeb without Core because they're tied together. So so behind the scenes, I already said that about the BiblioCore, and the website team is moving forward ahead on schedule. We're using the data that we've received from staff and patrons, as well as analytics and heat map data, which kind of gives you a graphical view of how people are interacting with the site. This is not worth really doing on a slide, but as you can see, very colorful and beautiful. But the redder it is means more people are using that part of the site. So we know that with heat map data, our number one area of our homepage is our catalog, which is not surprising. It's a library. People are coming to find materials. So what we want to do is kind of capitalize on their searches. And one of the things you can do with the two components of BiblioCore and BiblioWeb is if someone's searching for something like, let's say, a book about jazz, they can type in, I'm looking for jazz, or I'm looking for jazz music. And the way that it's tagged in both Core and Web, we can present them with the search, so the materials that they're expecting to find. And then they might also see that we have an upcoming jazz concert at the library, or we might see that someone has written a blog post about the best jazz musician of all time, or we might see a list of other materials that they might be interested in that have to do with jazz. So that's really the powerful thing about these two products. And it all is based on taxonomies, which is just the tagging so that you can tag something as jazz and then tag something else. And then BiblioWeb will present it up, and you can determine if you want everybody to see this thing, because maybe it's like poetry month, so you kind of want everybody to find out, or if it's just somebody who's searching for poetry. So it's pretty powerful, and it lets you really configure it to the way that you want people to interact with the list. So they talk about curating and creating discovery pathways. So it's like with our current site, which I always think of as more of a static site, people know they want to come in, they want to find the collaboratory, or they want to reserve a room. So they're either going to use the search box, or they're going to use the menu structures, and they're going to find that, and then they're going to probably leave after they do what they do. So what we're trying to do is give them different pathways to lead them into finding new materials and new information based on something that they thought they were looking for, but then it's kind of like how the store leads you through different pathways, and you might find something. I find this at Costco all the time, that I end up buying things that I did not expect to go when I walked in. So yeah, that's what we're going to try to do, to just help them find more of our materials and services and our wonderful knowledge that our staff has in terms of picking out materials that people might be interested in. So now you probably want to hear about timelines, so I'll talk about that as well. So in mid-May, which is just about a month away, some members of the website team, including myself, will be attending 3 days of BiblioWeb web builder training, and after which the bulk of the site building will begin. We actually have kind of a sandbox site right now. I've been playing around with it and adding some content and just doing what I can. I'm going through some kind of self-led training, but this is going to be hands-on virtual training with our implementation consultants. So from May to August, once we've been formally trained, we'll be building the site and migrating the content over. And then on the week of August 8th, we're planning to launch the staff preview, which you will also be able to view. And it will let staff test the site and offer feedback, and we'll be able to start helping them learn how to interact and find things on the site and help patrons find what they need to know. And then in early September, BiblioCore will go live to the public. And when that happens, so BiblioCore first goes live, and then we'll also launch the public preview of our website, which allows us to collect patron feedback while completing any outstanding page or content creation. And then our goal is to officially launch the Biblio website in total, sitting on BiblioCore, in mid-October, probably around October 18th.
Thinking about all of the different generations and cultures, after the staff looks at it, I would suggest you have people my age, people your age, teens, try it out, because that's a way to troubleshoot.
Yeah, we
before-
definitely will. That'll be part of the public preview. So first we'll have the staff preview, and then we'll have the public preview. And I know we got such a good response to the survey when we put out via email. We have a large email contact data list, and we had quite a few people that said they were interested in helping us beta test. And so we'll definitely be reaching out to them, as well as just opening it up to, people that are interested, and of course, all of you. And so, yeah, the more people that we can see, different segments of the community, would be great.
Is there a delineation between a preview and user testing prior to the preview, or is the preview the user?
The preview will be, well, the staff testing will also be user testing,
Okay.
but then the preview will be the web preview will be the user testing as far as, that goes for the live preview. Because we wouldn't really want to, I suppose we could test certain functionality, but it wouldn't be fully baked until that point to do some testing. So I think we'll have to see. There may be opportunities at different points along the way to get feedback, for sure.
I think that would be really good. I think that it needs to be user-friendly for all users, and we don't all come at it with the same skill set, so.
Agreed. I think that's a really good point, yes.
I agree with
Find some points
what
to-
Barbara's saying, but I'm asking more like before the public in whatever segment we're talking about is going to be looking at it, will it be testing to make sure the links go to the pages that they're supposed to go to, like the core functionality is working before it's being given a public
Yes,
launch?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I would think your consultants would be.
They'll be helping with that. We'll have reports to, run for broken links and things, and we'll be testing it. The one thing that's a little different from our current page, our current site has about 200 pages. They're static, they have links, they have different things going on, but not to say we couldn't have a lot of pages, but the beauty of this type of site is that it's more dynamic, so the pages are kind of like dynamically generated, so they're not you're not going to have the same amount of content. So it's a little bit, because I haven't, fully gotten into it yet, like in my mind, I know our current site, I know that inside and out, so I'm interested to see how this will, once we start building it out. So I think there will be natural points where we'll want to reach out to people and start making sure that we're going the right direction. There are so many libraries also that have implemented BiblioWeb. It's really helpful to see how they're using it. And there's not two that are the same, because it's very configurable, which is also nice because we can get, down this, certain path and realize, oh, we don't like that. But because we're not working with consultants, we're kind of building it, we can make those changes, which is really nice. Even, after implementation, 6 months go by and we see that there's some pain points and people are not able to find what they're looking for, or we're getting feedback, we can always make changes as we go.
As I listen to you talk about how this website works, am I conceptualizing this correctly? As you say, the current site is much like many websites. It's got pages and you update them sometimes and you, this sounds a little like you would query and almost it's building a page for you based on your query as opposed to just taking you to a page that exists. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it is a
concept.
new
Yeah.
model, and it is, it's great. I've seen it in action because I've played around with a lot of other websites, and you don't know that's happening. You feel like it's a very fluid piece, but you could go to the same website and see different content on a different month and a different day, and it's.
And different
it's
people will
different
be
people.
almost in a sense seeing a different website to some extent, because it takes building blocks from all over and puts it together for you.
Oh, that's interesting. Does it make it harder if you found something one day? Is it gonna be harder to find it the next, like if you go back like a month later? Are you like, but I thought I found it here?
I mean, it is possible because the content that's served up on a page might be scheduled so that it's only showing up in a certain month, like, spring training at baseball or something, and then it goes away when it's fall. So that is possible that the content may not be there forever. Like in our current site, if we publish something, it tends to just sit there unless we unpublish it, in which,
You can always find it like the same.
you
If
may
it's
not be
there,
able-
you could find,
Right.
as long as it's there, you can still find it the same route.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like if somebody's pulling a staff list, like staff wanted to create a list for their favorite Halloween movies or something, that might be something that we would just leave up, make it evergreen and just continue to leave that up because people might like scary movies. Or it might be something that we just want to have showing up in the month of, September and October.
When you say, and thank you for the presentation, it's really interesting and I think it's gonna be really cool. When you say that a public preview, what does that look like for an end user? Like, does everyone see it when they go onto the website? Is it like a banner? What does it look like?
That is a very good question. I will ask. I imagine it's going to be, they're going to be offered, would you like to see a new web experience?
Yeah.
That is in my head what it is, but I can't guarantee that I've been told that that is what it is. So I can reach out to our implementation person and ask what that looks like.
Sounds good, thank you.
Any other questions for Linda? Slightly related, congratulations on the new app. It looks great.
Yes.
Big fan.
Yes, please. If your settings are not set to auto update, you might need to delete the old one and re-add it, but it is well worth it. I know you've been waiting a long time, but it is so much more
It just made me
fun.
think we need a digital ribbon cutting for the app and then the website.
I know, we're just moving into the future.
When you go to the page for the first time, you get animated scissors.
Really? That's the old one.
Yeah, you're gonna have to probably delete it. There's one person that makes confetti animated, our kid gets admitted to college. Yes. Okay. Master plan project update.
Okay, so we are still in the gathering feedback and compiling in stage, but I'm very excited because we've gotten most of the department feedback and we're going to be meeting with the board on May 3rd. And so at the May board meeting, this is when I feel like it's really going to be starting to kick off because we'll have all the feedback, we'll have the space audit, and from there is where we'll then start using all that feedback and having Anna and I meet with the architects and start drawing up some ideas of what some plans could look like. So we'll get some options and then start getting more feedback on what works and what doesn't. So I'm very excited that it's we've been obviously doing a lot of work behind the scenes, but this feels like the next step we're approaching. So that's really exciting. But I'm happy to answer any other questions from the project update.
I had a quick question about the feedback groups. I was wondering if you, whoever's facilitating that teen advisory committee, if they could get some feedback from them. And that would be helpful on the teen space and how they.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure they would come with a lot of stuff, but that we may not be able to do. But just be interested in their feedback. How do they use the library? What would they like to see in a teen space?
That's a great idea.
Quarterly strategic plan report check-in.
I know it feels like we've talked about the strategic plan every month for the last 3 months because we have.
3 years.
But not every month. Feels like it? Okay. Well, It is the end of the first quarter of our second year. And as we discussed last month, we accomplished quite a bit in 2025. And so we're now focused on our 2026 work. As you would expect, at the end of the first quarter, we don't have a whole lot completed at this point because it's still very early on. But I wanted to just kind of call out a couple main areas that we're really focusing on. Continuing, of course, our EDI work, as Becky talked about, like we have those wonderful sessions at Staff Development Day. Of course, the master plan is another big one. Kelly continues to work on the safety and security work, including updating the cameras and investigating security outsourcing. You just heard from Linda about the website, which is another one of our big projects for the year. And then one more on the programming side is leading initiatives to promote civil civic engagement. And so our staff have really been focused on curating different programs that we can partner with different groups like the Community Relations Commission and others, but that's I think a great one to really focus on how can we create opportunities for people in the community who might disagree to come together, talk, listen, and still be part of the same community. So that has been something that has been a focus and will continue to be a focus in our programming efforts. And I'm happy to talk more in depth or answer any questions about any of the other parts of the report.
I guess the question I always have is, how will I know that you've done it? What does it look like? You know, align staff roles and responsibilities and improve decision-making. What is it going to look like from what it is now, and what do you want it to look like? What do you want it to end up being?
So what I'm hearing you say is that you would like in the quarterly reports us to put the outcomes next to the activities.
Well, I would
as
like to
well?
just know that
Yeah.
there's a way for me to say, oh, you've done that successfully.
Yeah.
And this is, when I was an school administrator, there were goals for the end of the year. Students had to, in every classroom, have certain things that they had to have been exposed to and were expected to be able to take into the next grade. And what I said to the teachers was, I don't care how you get there. You can take this route, or you can take this route, or you can do it this way. But at the end of the year, I want to see that you've all reached that point, because it isn't fair to your students to not have them prepared for the next grade. And I guess that's it. I don't need to see necessarily the path, but I want to know what it's going to look like at the end. So when you say to me, okay, we've accomplished this, okay, I don't care how you got there, but I want to know what it looks like at the end.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly, I will think about ways to kind of, I'm
Well,
trying
it's
to.
again, making
yeah.
it measurable, and I don't.
Yeah, and we have all of that. I haven't been including that level of detail in the quarterly strategic plan reports, but I certainly can rethink how I've been presenting it so that we have that more front and center.
And it doesn't have to be on a monthly basis or whatever it is. I mean, it could be, this is at the end of the year, this is what you're sharing with us. But it's, again, I think it's lovely that you take this much time to put this detail in, but that's what you're supposed to do. I trust you that you're going to do what you need to do to get to the end. But I want to know at the end what you've done, not necessarily how you got there.
I will ponder how to present and maybe come up with some ideas and run them by you guys and see what would
Does that
be.
make any sense? But
Yeah, no, I think it did. It did to me. I don't know. I will allow me to try some things and then see what I can come up with.
I mean, I completely agree, especially in my line of work. They say what gets measured gets managed. And so we have to have deliverables and goals. And there's quite a few things that we're working on right now that will get to, I think, your outcomes. So thank you.
You spend so much time detailing the route. I don't care about the route. I trust that you're going to get there, but I want to know when you get there.
I care a little about the route.
Okay,
As someone who has no sense of direction, I care very deeply about the routes.
You would need your GPS, so.
I need my GPS to go ahead. No sense of direction.
oh, so that's you, Kelly, and Bryce.
And Adam.
Oh, and Adam too.
Totally clueless without my GPS.
Okay.
So I guess it's striking the balance.
Yes.
The path does help us stay up to speed on what you're up to. And we don't always have to talk about it, but
Right.
some of these summaries are useful, even though we don't go into the details.
Right, but just keeping you guys aware, but I think also making sure that we're keeping those outcomes front and center, which I'm very much keeping and look at every month, and I'll do a better job of connecting this to the outcomes so that you know.
Great. Cool. No closed session tonight. Next month, we have the following items on the agenda. This isn't right. The nominating committee presents the new slate of officers. It says policy nominating committee. That's not right.
Man, no, I don't know why I put that.
The nominating committee will present the new slate of officers. We will have the election of board officers. We will appoint an OMA officer as part of the consent agenda, approve the tax levy letter to the village as part of the consent agenda, update the FOIA information and the executive director succession plan in the consent agenda. What's a consent agenda? Update the FOIA policy in the consent agenda. We will have a master plan project update and presentation, a summer reading presentation. We'll talk about the 4th of July parade, which, in case you don't know, the theme is the 125th anniversary of the village.
Oh, is the village celebrating?
And the Village of Northbrook is the grand marshal of its own parade. We will also be discussing the executive director annual goals review in closed session, and this could go on there in board reports, or we can make it its own item. I will have an updated executive director review timeline for the board to review and get feedback. Anything else that you'd like to discuss in May?
And we will also be looking at Kelly's report on outsourcing security.
Great.
So I hope you enjoyed this lighter agenda. Oh, and the next board meeting is the Thursday before Memorial Day. So if anyone is going anywhere and think that you might not be here, please let me or Jennifer know.
Anything else for the good of the cause? We will adjourn at 8:27 p.m.